Good day and welcome to another A Week at the Plot. It's Tuesday morning and it's quite early, it's 9:30, and I've just come down this morning. I came down with Richard actually as he was going to work, because the wonderful couple that we stay with in Guernsey when we go over there, they are in the area at the moment and wanted to meet up and just chat about apple tree pruning in particular, because where we stay there's a glorious old Bramley apple tree, really old, like 60-70 years old, outside the window of the annex, and I was hoping that we'd be able to get to Guernsey to help them prune it early this year, but that hasn't happened. And as they were staying with their son and family nearby, they come down and we've just had a quick walk around, looked at my apple tree, looked at another apple tree that is 2 years into a 3-year cycle, and then went and had a look at the cider apple trees, which are 1 year, or this is now getting into the second year of their 3-year cycle. So we were talking about bringing down the height, opening up the branches, taking out dead wood, taking out crossing wood, taking out water shoots. So, you know, it was a really lovely half hour, and they were rushing off to another part of the country to see another family member. So that half an hour was just sandwiched in, but it was lovely to see them, absolutely lovely to see them. And it's really windy and pretty grey. We're due some showers, but I'm hoping that if I can get work done at my desk this morning, I'll be able to come down and have an hour maybe just pulling grasses. I had a look back at the video last week of looking at the weed roots underneath the black plastic, and yeah, I think I'll be on my hands and knees the next time I'm down here pulling grasses and cutting grasses. That needs to be done. Anyway, if I'm here later, you will see me do that. If I'm not, I'm going to say goodbye now. Frog in my throat. Say goodbye now, and I'll see you again for pulling grasses very soon. Oh, and of course, I have checked on the broad beans that I sowed only a few days ago, and they haven't germinated yet, not surprisingly. See you very soon. Okay, so 20 to 25 minutes of pulling of grass and using the shears, and I can at least begin seeing the wood for the trees, or the work for the grass maybe is a better phrase. Lots of work to do. Let's just take a closer look. So I've pulled the grass around the edges, so I can at least see the work that needs to be done. You know, there's big tufts here and tufts here that need to be taken out, and here as well. That will either be a hand fork or a sort of full-size fork job. I've pulled weeds out of here, reclaiming this bed. A lot of what is in there now is just dry straw. This will have to do for another day, and I can see there's detritus in there. There's a seed tray that has blown in. That's a seed tray that we don't use. Various pots and things that have fallen off over the years. So yes, this is the next area that I'm going to work on by hand. If we come over here, I think you can clearly see that this Hebe needs a good cut back. There's areas here That's just dead wood. And there's areas in here that are leafed, so they're still alive. So that's with secateurs one day. But you know what, that's a start. And where I've stripped here, I'll go in with my hand and just sort of well, with a rake actually, and just pull that out. But then I can start strimming around the edges. As you know, we've got hedgehogs, which quite like it under there. So I'm trying to maintain this area a little bit rough and just carry on doing that. This ceanothus, I want to use this path this year. I didn't use it last year. This ceanothus will be cut back. This is a cherry, which I think again has suffered. I've got a feeling up here there's no it doesn't feel as though there's any life here, but you can see buds beginning to emerge, or maybe you can't because it's out of focus. You see buds beginning to emerge there, so some of it is alive. So yeah, these are the big tufts that I'm going to need to get out. But you know what, just doing this today has really made me realize that the job is not insurmountable. Yeah, it's not insurmountable. We're just hitting dusk now because I've been chatting for 15 minutes to our plot neighbour here. Yeah, I'm glad to have got that job started. Lots more work to do on it, but we can see the way that I am reclaiming that bed. And Susie gave me a kick up the arse. She said, you know, it's not the norm, that with all the grass around it. And of course I know it's not the norm. I hope I didn't sort of let people feel last week when I was talking that it was the norm. You know, we know why I sort of let that bed go. I did explain it last week, but Susie saying what she did, sort of, I thought, yeah, you know, get on, pull those grasses. And that of course is what I've done today. More work to do, but at least I've begun. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there because it is getting pretty dark. See you soon. Bye. Good day. It's now Saturday afternoon, and the last time you saw me down here was, I think, Tuesday, and I was pulling up the grass, starting to work around that bed that I'm reclaiming. And on Wednesday I came down and I continued working around that bed and basically cutting things back. And I also cut this honeysuckle shrub back. I call it honeysuckle tree. I think it is actually a honeysuckle shrub. But there was this pathway here was being impeded with some branches, and it was also sort of growing onto the pathway just behind the grow house here. So I've cut some of those back, and those cuttings all went onto a dead hedge. And I also had a look at the Hebe that I knew part of it had died, and in fact quite a bit of it had died. So I've cut that back quite a lot. And then I read, I think it was yesterday on, maybe it was Planet Vegetarian, maybe it was a YouTube comment about somebody saying that their ransoms were coming up, and I thought, I wonder where our ransoms are. I haven't seen them. Ransoms wild garlic. So yeah, I thought maybe they just died in the cold. And then as I was coming down here today, I found a lucky find on our street, a workmate bench, which I think works. Found that, so that's great. And I was coming down to put kitchen peelings into a compost bin, and I thought, you know what, they must still be at the plot somewhere, the ransoms. And then as I went around to the polytunnel, I looked at a pot that I just put on top of the water barrel to keep the lid on, a water tub to keep the lid on. And I thought, oh, those are ransoms. But they were a little bit weedy. Weedy as in covered, embedded with weeds, not as in feeling or looking a bit sort of shabby. I've weeded that pot. I've achieved something today. Let's have a quick look at it. This is our pot of wild garlic, and these are the weeds that I've taken out of it. You know, we know about last year, so I'm not going to go on about it, but at least they're clear of weeds at the moment. And if I can keep on top of weeding these, maybe we'll get some nice wild garlic from this. I mean, you can see that the leaves are already looking pretty good to eat, but I don't think we'll be harvesting from it this year. But yes, this pot just sits on this lid to stop this lid blowing away, because this dustbin, which has water in it, doesn't have the catches to hold the lid on. Whilst I'm here, you can see spring is on its way, though I think slugs are also on their way, because these have been eaten a bit by slugs. But look at the grass that needs trimming in front of them. The gazanias on either side I think are gone, but I'm going to be sowing some seeds of gazania quite soon, so fingers crossed. In the poly needs a bit of a tidy, as you can see, and a little bit of a water. These aren't wild garlic, these are hyacinths. But yeah, that needs a tidy in there. Let's have a look at what I continued tidying the other day. Hopefully you can see the difference here from the other day, where there was a whole load of dead wood on this Hebe and some on this cherry as well. Lots of strimming to do, and I have brought my battery down for my strimmer, but it's a bit wet today to do it. But most of the wood, the dead wood that was on this cherry, has been cut back, and as I was saying, it's going to give a fabulous bloom hopefully this year. I mean, it's certainly budding up to give an amazing bloom. And then if we come over here, the Hebe, which basically covered this whole area here, this is what's left. One branch coming up here, one branch coming out here. And I think what I'm going to do is just pull this branch in a bit, because I want to keep the path here as clear as possible. So I think I'll just pull that in a bit, because what I think I'd like to do in the summer is take cuttings from this Hebe and then cut it right back down to here, so that it starts bushing up in this area again. What pulling as much grass as I could by hand the other day has given me is the opportunity to see the work that needs to be done here, which is quite a bit. But of course the good thing is I have started. I've also started here cutting back this ceanothus, which was hanging over this path, so this path is now accessible again. And I've also started cutting back here. I cut this bit down of the ceanothus the other day, and then I got a call that I needed to go home for, a work call, nothing you know, no emergency or anything, but something I needed to go home for. So I just left that there. So yeah, work is continuing. I'm just going to, and of course this area I haven't started on yet. And I did start pulling up this black cover, but we've got a significant family of slow worms in there, so I'm just leaving that. And then these tubs, some of them, as you can see, are now sort of not fit for purpose. They'll be going into a black plastic bag to go home into our rubbish bin. I know it may not look like it, but I feel quite happy about what I've done this week so far. And what I'm going to do now is just a bit of weeding. These are our leeks. They seem to be overwintering pretty well actually, but you can also see there's quite a bit of weed in there. So I'm just going to get in and weed that by hand, obviously. Well, I'm not sure if that looks better to you, but it certainly feels a little bit better to me. And with just keeping on top of our beds that do have things growing in them and doing this micro weeding, I'm hoping to not have the beds getting into the state that they got into last year. We've got time. I feel sort of pleasantly confident that I'm a little bit ahead of the game at the moment for this growing year, despite last year's growing year. I've just put a bamboo cane in there to hold that Hebe into the plot a little bit, and then use some natural jute to just tie it so that when it does blow in the wind it doesn't wobble about, which could damage it. Because if I want to take cuttings from this in July, August, which is the ideal time to do it, I obviously want that branch to be nice and healthy. This is the bed we did a few weeks ago. I can see there's a few bits of crouch grass still growing. So again, my mantra for this year is trying to keep on top of things. That's rather a long bit there, but that bit's out. There's more here, which I think is in the gap between the stones, the cobbles which are there. So I was saying a few weeks ago, however much you weed, you'll always miss some. Trying not to disturb the soil too much. This is the sweet peas through the glass, and you can see that I don't think they're going to do much. What I do need to do is clean the glass. But if I look about behind me, you may remember we were given these iris last year, and I've been largely keeping on top of the micro weeding of these. You can see there's some small weeds coming, but I'm just pulling them out as they do. But these to me seem to be growing quite nicely. I haven't grown iris for many a year. It's that little pot there as well. I mean, I think they're getting a sort of decent amount of sun here, but maybe it's time to move them elsewhere. This area is an area that I'll be looking at next week, cutting back dead wood. You can see here, this is a lemon balm, I think. That's all dead up there, but that's still alive. This is a jasmine. It's a red or pinkish flowered rose lavender, isn't it? Pinkish flowered lavender. And I need to do some work on weeding these pots here and cutting some things back. These are all, well, mainly soft fruits, but we'll do that next week maybe. Finally for this week, a bit of weeding to do here. This is our Mizuna that we were overwintering under fleece, but as you know, the fleece got ripped, I think by a fox. And then over there is 2 bits of cabbage, perpetual cabbage, that have been put in. I was given them the other day and I just didn't have time to do anything with them, so I just stuck them in. We're going to be taking some cuttings another day, not from this but from the mother plant, and I'll show you what I do with those, though I have done that before in another video which I'll link to here. This area is a bed that hopefully, if the weather holds out, I will get into and weed tomorrow. Not too bad, but definitely weeds that need to come out. Trying to keep on top of my philosophy for this year of trying to get a bit ahead of the game. Well, I'm going to leave it there for this week's A Week at the Plot. I've got about another hour down here before I need to get home and do a few other things, so I'm just going to, I'll most probably start weeding that bed that I've just shown you, the end bed at the end of the brassicas. In fact, that whole bed is brassicas. I did bring my battery down to strim this morning, but it's far too wet to strim sensibly, so I will take it back home and bring it down another day when it's a little bit drier, hopefully sometime next week. And here are the loppers here that I used to cut off the dead wood of the Hebe, because the branches were so dead on the shrub that my secateurs wouldn't cut through them, so I had to use loppers, and I use loppers for the honeysuckle shrub as well. So yeah, they come in very handy. So there we are. Yes, I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to do some weeding at the end of the brassica bed. I've got some time, as I say, just down here, so I'm just going to get on and do that. And I feel as though I've achieved this week. I really feel as though I've achieved this week. There's lots still to do, and that bed that we've sort of reclaimed the edges of, where the Hebe is and the Dwarf Cherry, that is most probably half of the work that needs to be done in that area done this week. I want to go in with my hand fork. I want to weed just like we've just done in the front bed here, though obviously there's far more to do over there. But yeah, I feel quite happy that this week I've achieved, and I think that's important to have a feeling that we are moving forward and achieving. What next week will bring, I don't know, because next week is quite a busy week for me. There's a couple of things that I need to do for Earth's sake, and we've got the website that needs, the new website that needs to move forward quite a bit. The old website for earthsake.co.uk is still up, but we're designing a new one in the background, which will have a shop for local deliveries. So yeah, quite exciting really. Anyway, I'm just going to carry on down here for another hour or so and listen to the planes as they come in. And there is a wonderful smell of fish and chips coming across from the pub along the way as well. So I'm feeling a tad hungry, even though I only had lunch an hour or an hour and a half ago. Anyway, I will see you again. I can't speak. The fish and chips thoughts are just sort of clogging up my brain. I will see you again next week for further segments of A Week at the Plot on Planet Vegetaria. And of course, if you watch on YouTube, there'll be another upload in a week's time. And whatever is happening in your garden, your growing space, or your allotment, I hope you're able to get out and do a little bit and start moving forward and feeling that you're achieving things. I know for some of you, you're still sort of 2 foot in snow and not able to get on and do things, but I hope in your mind you're planning the work that needs to be done. Any comments, any questions, please do leave them down below, and I'll see you very soon for further segments or an upload of A Week at the Plot. Happy growing. Bye.